Have you ever been arrested? No. Are you sure? I can see everything here.
It just took it violently. So I was in shock.
Americans make everything sweet. Yeah, so this can be nice, but also it can get annoying at some point.
Hi guys! It's finally warm outside, so of course we are stuck here in the city.
As always.
Yeah.
So we wanted to use the opportunity and film a video where we tell you more about us again. We haven't done one for quite a while now.
Yeah.
As some of you guys know, we love to travel, and we got to visit North America 3 times so far. And since many of you are from North America, we thought it could be fun to tell you more about our experience while visiting your continent, to tell you which places we visited, but also
to tell you guys what surprised us there, what was different than in Europe.
or shocking even.
Maybe shocking.
So let's get started. So the main reason why we were able to visit North America 3 times is because my brother lives in Calgary.
Canada.
Correct, Alberta. And so we visited him in 2015, 2016 and 2017, so 3 years in a row. So the first time in 2015, we stayed only in Canada. We didn't visit the US. And I remember, even though my brother lives in Calgary, we landed in Edmonton, which is about, I think, 300 kilometers north of Calgary, because it was super cheap. It was this huge promotion, and we were really lucky to get those flight tickets. You had to buy them like half a year in advance.
I think it was right after Christmas,
Yeah.
and then we were supposed to fly at the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
And I was totally scared because it was my first long-haul flight across the ocean.
Yeah, we had to transfer twice. I think we went from Vienna to Paris, then from Paris to Toronto, and then from Toronto to Edmonton.
Yeah, and we had to fill out this form with something like, oh my god, honey, they say you can't bring fruits with you. And I had 2 apples and 2 pears, which I took from the lounge in Vienna. And I was totally stressed out. Like, oh my god, they will not let me in Canada because I have some apples. Oh my god.
Yeah, some rules are really strict and you feel like they don't make any sense, right?
Yeah, and we didn't know about them.
Yeah.
So I filled out that I have 2 apples and 2 pears in my backpack. And luckily it was okay with the lady that was asking questions at the airport.
At the customs.
Yeah, it's so weird, or I don't know if weird is the right word.
Yeah, because when you travel in Europe, there are no checks like that, especially within the European Union or within the Schengen area. It feels like you're traveling domestically.
Yeah, it's like domestic flights. But even when we came back, like when you travel from America to Europe, there are no questions or nothing.
Yeah, North America is stricter.
Yeah, very strict. So you feel like a criminal. And this was Canada. It's even worse in the US.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So we made it eventually, and there was your brother waiting for us.
But we didn't go back to Calgary right away. The plan was that we'll start our road trip right away. So it actually took us 6 days to get from Edmonton to Calgary.
Yeah, but that was part of the road trip.
Yeah.
And the best part.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So we started in Edmonton.
Yeah, and we drove to the Canadian Rockies right away.
To Jasper National Park.
Yeah. And that was the first shock for me. But it was a positive shock how beautiful the landscapes are in Canada.
Yeah, and right at the beginning of the national park, there were many animals already, like running across the road, and they weren't afraid. We were filming and taking pictures.
And we even saw our first black bear right away, I think.
Yeah.
I think we saw 4 black bears within just a couple of days right away. Yeah, so there's so much wildlife in North America, unlike Europe, where we already killed all the animals. So there's just nothing to see here.
Then, what was different was the campsite, because it was very organized and there was a lot of space in between the sites.
That's true, because our campgrounds are so cramped. Like there's one tent next to each other and you have no privacy whatsoever.
Yeah, in the Czech Republic, a camp means that there is a meadow and you can build a tent wherever. So people are next to each other and yeah, it's so cramped.
Yeah, there are no designated sites. Just find a free spot.
Yeah. So this was definitely better, like totally better. We loved it.
Yeah, the Canadian campgrounds were amazing. I loved the experience.
Yeah.
So eventually we made our way through 6 national parks in 6 days.
And the nature everywhere was so amazing, so beautiful, waterfalls everywhere, and
everything's bigger in North America.
Yeah,
like the waterfalls were huge and just everything looks amazing for us Europeans. But my favorite national park was definitely Jasper. Probably because it was the first one we visited, so it was so breathtaking and positively shocking.
Yeah.
And also there was much more wildlife there and less people than in the other national parks because it was farther away from big cities. People often highlight Banff because it's close to Calgary, so it's easy to get to. Like you're there in 1 hour, I think, or 1.5 hours. But when we made our way through all the other parks to Banff, I suddenly felt like there are people and tourists everywhere and less wildlife hiding from people.
Yeah. So that was a minus for us, of course, because more people and less wildlife is a minus for us.
My brother was like, wait until you get to Banff, that's the best one.
Yeah.
And then we were like, that's it. But it was still beautiful. But the other ones are even better because they are less explored, I guess.
I have to talk about the animals one more time. I remember there was a squirrel. I was
Squirrel!
It wasn't afraid at all, and I was eating a muffin, and it just came very rude and took a piece of my muffin.
Like it jumped on your legs?
Yeah, it jumped on my legs and like it just took it violently. So I was in shock and I love to eat, so I didn't like that squirrel.
So what did you think about Calgary? That was the first American city we saw.
That was totally different than what we were used to in Europe, because the cities here are very historic and old-fashioned and cramped, I would say.
And more irregular.
Yeah, totally, more irregular, but Calgary was very modern, so I loved it. You see skyscrapers there, and in between there was quite a lot of greenery as well, like flowers and trees, and it was very nice.
We don't have any skyscrapers in the Czech Republic. There's 0 of them.
Yeah, the tallest building in the Czech Republic is here in Brno, and it's not tall at all.
It's like 20 floors?
Yeah, something like that. So even in Bratislava there are taller buildings.
Because in Prague it's forbidden to build skyscrapers because it's in UNESCO, so it would like destroy the historical look.
Yeah, so and here in Brno
there is no interest. Like, why would they build skyscrapers?
Yeah, so that was totally new in Calgary, and Calgary's downtown isn't even that big, right? Because there are bigger cities.
I guess, yeah.
But it was still amazing, and I remember we wanted to go through these connections between the buildings.
Yeah.
You know, the glass corridors.
Like all the skyscrapers are connected, so you don't have to go outside to go from one to another.
And we got lost, of course. So we were asking for directions, and that didn't help either, so that was interesting.
So then in 2016, we came back and we decided to explore the US this time. So we actually didn't spend almost any time in Canada.
We landed in Chicago. and we changed flights there and then continued to Canada. So that was the first time we were in the US, and there is this entering, police check, immigration, and that was the worst, I think, because we were really afraid. The police officers are strict and they ask questions like, what are you doing here? How long are you going to stay? And it's so strict. You are not used to this in Europe, I would say.
Yeah.
It's like a police state or something. And you had to give them your fingerprints and everything.
And eye scans as well, I think.
Oh my god, yeah. For us, it's really weird. Like, it's too much.
Yeah.
But we made it again.
Yeah. We were really nervous about that. We were like, we want to go to Canada, just let us go. We don't want to stay here in Chicago.
Yeah, because we were just changing flights there and it was so strict already. So, wow.
But then we landed in Calgary to meet up with my brother again. And a couple of days later, we started our road trip to the US. It was a very challenging road trip because in a matter of 13 days, we visited 10 national parks.
Yeah.
And it was a huge road trip because we started in Calgary, but we went all the way down to San Francisco in California, and then we went back to Calgary again.
Yeah.
So we spent like 6 hours in the car every day on average. I'm the organizer, so I'm always responsible for creating the plan for our vacation. And I wanted it to be challenging. I mean, we always want to see as many places as possible, so we don't mind being in a hurry. But I forgot to calculate in that we also need time for eating, for example.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we were constantly in delay and it was very, very intense. So we crossed the borders at the beginning of the road trip from Canada to the US.
Which was again stressful because going back to the US we had to pass the immigration again.
Yeah, but this wasn't so strict because it was some small town, I think. And we just showed passports. They asked a few questions. We were already used to that. And then there was some problem with your brother, but the police officer said that you two are okay, me and Tommy, and then he had to go to the office and I don't know. But that took like 10 minutes and we were able to continue.
Oh yeah.
So we were in the US and I needed to pee. There were no toilets, so we stopped at the side of the road and I went to the bushes somewhere and there were cars, a few cars driving by and they were honking.
Americans are such prudes.
Yeah. So, but I wasn't even visible, I was quite farther from the road.
You were not that far. I think you were visible from the road.
Oh, I was?
Yeah.
I thought I was quite far from the road. But, okay. But in Europe, no one would care.
Yeah, here you can pee in the middle of the street.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's different. We always read in the news that someone was arrested for public urinating or something. That's not a thing here.
Yeah. You can pee as you go.
Yeah, so you won't get arrested. We have to mention it because that's something that's different.
Yeah, we learned our lesson. You have to run away half a mile from the road at least before you start peeing.
Yeah, probably.
What I loved was how diverse the US is when it comes to the landscape, for example. Because we visited 10 national parks and each one of them was different than the rest. So one day we were dying of heat in Death Valley, but 2 days later we were hiking in snow again. And that's why this has been my favorite vacation ever so far. Because when you travel in a similar climate the whole time, like when we stayed in Canada and we spent a week, even though we visited many different national parks, they looked very similar. So after some time you get a little bit bored of it. It's still beautiful, but you're not like, wow, look at that anymore.
Because like, it isn't new anymore.
Yeah, just another waterfall there, you don't have to stop, let's keep driving.
Yeah.
But here, every day was different. It was a new experience. So the whole vacation for me was amazing, even though we were constantly in a hurry.
Yeah, we were. It was very intense, but it's my favorite too because it was so diverse.
I'm not even able to say which national park was my favorite because they were all so beautiful. Like we visited Yellowstone, which was very unique, of course, and Zion National Park was amazing, and we didn't even know about Zion until we decided to go there.
Yeah, you walk in the river, in a canyon.
Yeah, you hike in the water.
Yeah, and I forgot my shoes for water, so I was going barefoot. And that wasn't that pleasant because it hurt a little bit, my feet. And people were like, wow, oh my god, you are walking barefoot here. Because in America, people talk to you.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's so weird. In Europe, no one talks to you and people just pretend you don't exist. But here, everyone talks to you.
Yeah. In Europe, you just mind your own business and you don't talk to strangers in the street.
Yeah.
So that was a very different experience. People keep asking you where you're from and how you like it here and stuff like that. And it's very nice. Like everybody's being friendly, even though you know that they're not genuinely friendly, they don't want to be your friends, but it's nice that they approach you like that, and you feel more like you can ask people for help, for example. Yeah, so this can be nice, but also it can get annoying at some point.
For us introverts.
Yeah. Like when they ask you all the time how you are. Like you enter a store and you want to buy something and they start with how are you, and you don't know if you're actually supposed to tell them how you are or how to answer.
Yeah, because when someone asks you here, how are you in Czechia, you say, oh, I'm terrible, I don't feel that great, and you tell them the truth.
Be careful what you wish for when you ask.
But in America, it's just a greeting
Yeah.
or something. How are you is like hi.
Yeah, you just say good.
So they don't want to know how you are.
We also visited some American cities along the way between the national parks because they were along the way. So in each city we spent 3 hours to visit a local grocery store or hypermarket, right? And buy rations and visit 2 or 3 sites and continue.
Yeah.
And when we visited the hypermarkets, if that's what you call them, like Costco, that was also a new experience for us, especially the huge selection of everything. We're used to that here. Like when you want to buy veggies, right? You have only a few options, and there were such huge areas where you could buy something we've never even seen before.
Yeah. And a lot of muffins and cookies. We don't eat stuff like that here, but when we are on vacation, we treat ourselves. And for me, it's always we are going to buy cookies and huge amounts. So I love that.
And it's also something new for us. Like when we were kids, there was nothing like muffins or cookies available in stores.
Yeah.
Now with the globalization, you can buy, of course, everything everywhere almost.
Yeah, but still there are no such good cookies here.
Like not fresh ones.
Yeah.
So when we visit North America, we always make sure to eat stuff like that.
Yeah, the unhealthy stuff. Yeah, and we usually eat in fast foods, like Subway, for example.
Yeah.
Because here fast foods are usually more expensive than regular restaurants.
Yeah, that's true. They're quite posh, these McDonald's.
Yeah, but we are on a budget when we are on vacation, and they are cheaper in North America.
That's
because regular restaurants are much more expensive.
Yeah. Here it's pretty much the same. Like if you buy several cheeseburgers at McDonald's, you pay approximately the same price as for regular meal in a restaurant.
Yeah. What was new was this Denny's, or what it's called?
Denny's,
Denny's,
I think.
And there were pancakes. Like a huge pile of pancakes.
There was a lot of everything. Like you ordered something and you got a lot of stuff with it.
Or bacon. Bacon is very common, and you get that to pancakes as well.
Yeah, they put sweet stuff on bacon, right? Like it's
Yeah.
maple syrup or something.
Uh-huh.
We don't do that. Americans make everything sweet,
Yeah,
I think.
guys,
They put sugar into everything.
it's interesting. Do you need so much sugar?
Even regular pastry, like bread, is
Mhm.
much sweeter in North America.
Yeah. So bread was a bit weird, but I loved all the other things, like the pancakes and yeah. So I was enjoying everything.
Yeah. When we are on vacation, we don't really care about calories and what it's made of as much.
Yeah, but also because our days are very intense,
Mhm.
so we burn a lot of calories.
That's true. We actually lose weight while we eat unhealthy on vacation.
Yeah.
Also, what we noticed is that in North America, everything is done for people's comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's little things, but I think that was the first time I've ever seen a drive-through ATM, for example.
Yeah.
Like everything is done the way so that you wouldn't have to lift a finger. Or a completely random thing I remember is that when we bought sliced cheese, there were like little paper layers between the slices so that the cheese wouldn't stick together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is comfortable and convenient, but at the same time it's not environment friendly, so I don't think you would find something like that here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Europe is very climate oriented. Like we have to protect the earth. In America, it's more wasteful,
Yeah.
I would say. But a nice thing is that the petrol, gas, is much cheaper in
Mhm.
the US.
It depends state from state. I think in California it was almost the same price as here.
No, it was still much cheaper,
Okay.
I think, than here.
And that's why they waste everything, because everything's cheap.
I know what was new to me and to you as well. We weren't able to figure out how to start water in the shower in some motel. You know, because the water tap or I don't know, faucet,
Mhm.
it was totally different.
That was really weird because you guys are so wasteful. It was basically only on or off.
Yeah.
Like you had to turn it around the whole thing. Like here you can decide how much water should flow through the shower head. So you can just have a little flow. But there it was just so much water flowing at the same time. That was crazy.
Yeah, just the shower, and with the thingy,
Mhm.
you could choose the temperature, I think,
yeah.
but not the amount of water
Yeah.
that's flowing.
Maybe it's different in new modern places, but from what we experienced, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
In all the motels.
And everywhere there is this shower head, like fixed up, and you can't take it in your hand and wash your body.
I don't like that. I like holding the shower head and going like that.
Yeah. So we weren't used to that either.
It's funny discovering such small little things that are different because you are on a different continent.
Yeah. And the toilets, do you remember? There is much more water there.
Yeah. Like the whole thing just disappears.
Yeah.
Which is more practical
Yeah.
than the European toilets.
Toilets are more practical.
But again, more water wasteful. Even though the 2016 road trip was amazing, the next year we decided to take it slower and make a smaller road trip, right? So this time we landed first in Vancouver, and then we actually didn't go to Vancouver first, but we took a ferry to Vancouver Island, where we spent several days. And then we went back to Vancouver, and we continued with my brother to Washington, where we visited finally the Olympic National Park, which we had to skip the previous year.
Yeah. But this year, the crossing to the US was even more stressful than years before, because this was a big border crossing, bigger than last time. So they were asking questions again, but there was this police officer that said to us that he spent some time in Slovakia.
Oh yeah.
So we were talking, and you know, that was like very friendly. But in the end, he of course said, go to the side and go inside the building for further checks.
Yeah. Were we to spend like 2 or 3 hours queuing?
Yeah, so we were waiting in some queue, and that was a bit insulting to me because what am I, a second-class citizen? I'm here just for vacation. Like, I have no intention to stay here in the US illegally or something.
Yeah, I mean, this is King Peter.
Yeah.
He doesn't need.
Like,
to
do you
get to
know
the
who
US.
I am? Yeah, so I don't like this system. Why is it so strict and
Yeah, unfriendly.
yeah, unfriendly? So we were waiting in the queue, then they were asking questions again. I don't know if we look suspicious.
Yeah. Have you ever been arrested? No. Are you sure? I can see everything here.
Yeah, it's so weird, like what are these questions about? And then it was like, okay, you can go.
But we got there.
Yeah, so we got in the US again.
And other than Olympic, we also got to visit Mount Rainier National Park and Mount St. Helens, which was a highlight for me.
Yeah, because that was a new landscape again. Volcano and yeah, interesting history there.
It was very interesting to see the destroyed landscape, which is now like coming back, you know, like and there were flowers everywhere. It looked beautiful.
Yeah.
On this road trip, I remember you discovered your new favorite dessert.
Oh, yes! Yes, I remember. On Vancouver Island, what was it? A Nanaimo bar.
Nanaimo bar.
Yeah, the name is the Nanaimo bar.
I think you discovered it on the ferry.
No.
Or on the way already.
No, yeah, on the way already, because we were on some random gas station and we bought some stuff, and it was this Nanaimo bar, and I was amazed. And Tommy's brother's girlfriend said to us that it's very traditional on Vancouver Island because there is a town of Nanaimo where these bars are from. So I bought more there. It was, of course, the best in the city, the best taste because it wasn't so artificial. And wow, I want that again.
And that time we spent also more time in Seattle, and we also visited Vancouver on our way back, I think again.
Yeah.
And Vancouver has definitely been my favorite city in North America.
Mine too. It's very modern, very connected with nature as well.
Clean looking.
Clean, very clean. The cities in the US are modern as well on the west coast, but they are not as clean as the cities in Canada.
Vancouver looked very futuristic. We hope we will be able to visit North America again in the future, but for now we'll have to stay here.
Yeah. So this video is coming to an end. Hopefully we didn't offend anyone.
These were only things that we noticed, but we don't want to say that it's either better in North America or better in Europe. It was just fun to compare the differences.
And it's fun to experience something different. So we hope you enjoyed this video and see you guys next time.
Bye!
Bye!